Thank you, ladies. It is so good to be here. I absolutely love navigating motherhood. And like she said, I do. I have 3 little ones of my own. I have a 5-year-old son, a 3-year-old daughter, and a just recently turned 1-year-old little son. And I don't know about you, but for me, there's not much I love more than to see my kids be kind, especially at this young age. It is the sweetest thing. I mean, even if it's something as simple as my son letting my daughter choose what we watch for family movie night, or maybe my daughter offering up that last pack of fruit snacks, which if you know my daughter, offering up the last pack of fruit snacks is not a small gesture. But even if it's just overhearing them in the other room exchange words of gentleness and tenderness and consideration, I mean, I can just hear the birds chirping, talking about it, right? I can hear my daughter going, "Hey, brother, I know you love this toy. When I'm done, would you like to play with it?" Like, can't you just hear birds chirping at the idea of them speaking so sweetly and kindly to one another? I mean, I know these are small gestures, but they're not, because they say so much. And I think kindness, it's inclusive of so many of the things that we want our kids to be, right? And us too. To be kind is to be generous, to be selfless, to be compassionate, to be empathetic, to be an includer, ultimately to have a care and a concern for others. And God is so kind. They are such a gift. Kids are such a blessing, and they're really cute. I mean, just dropping my kids off, hearing their little voices and seeing their cute little faces, they're adorable. But I don't think any of you would argue that regardless of how cute a kid is, there's really not all too much that's cute about an unkind kid. There's nothing cute about a kid grabbing a toy from another kid, yelling, "Mine!" or screaming no at his mom. There's nothing cute about a kid throwing a toy truck at another kid's face, right? I mean, I'm not hearing birds chirping anymore. I feel like it's like crows cawing or something super unpleasant. And these are the more unpleasant moments of parenthood, right? Probably some of the ones that we dread the most. And while it is inevitable that we will find our kids doing unkind things and selfish things, the big question today is, what are we proactively doing about that? What are we proactively doing about our kids to become kind? I mean, they're not just going to learn the ABCs without repeatedly hearing and saying the ABCs. They're not just going to become good readers without ever learning how to read, right? And they're not going to learn how to be kind unless we're diligent and intentional about teaching our kids what that means and what it looks like to be lived out. So if we want our children to be kind, we need to teach them how to be kind. It's as simple as that. But of course, it's not that easy. I mean, I think as a mom, the weight of our influence can either totally panic us or it can pump us up. And I think sometimes it does a little bit of both, doesn't it? But I think there is a healthy fear in recognizing that the influence we have on our kids now, the impact that we'll have on them forever, right? And so I want us to leave today genuinely pumped up and motivated about this gift we have as parents to help mold our kids to become kind. And while there are so many things that we can do to teach our kids to be kind, arguably, one of the most impactful and influential and important things we can do is model kindness for them, to be their absolute best model of kindness on a daily basis. And so that's my point number 1 today, is be their best model of kindness. A child was once asked, "How can parents teach their children to be kind?" And the child responded, "Well, they should be kind to them." And I asked my 5-year-old son, Bryce, I said, "Hey, bud, if someone were to come up to you and ask you what kindness was, how would you explain it to him?" And he said, "Well, I would show them how to do it." So clearly, the most impactful way we can teach kindness is to show our kids how to do it. So how well are we doing at this? How well are we modeling kindness to our kids? How well are we modeling kindness in the things that they see us do? And the things that they see us do. Philippians 2:3-4 says, "Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you not look only to his own interest, but also to the interest of others." So how often do your kids see you doing generous and selfless things? And you're probably thinking like, I'm a mom. It's what I do all day, all the time. And this is great, right? Because it gives us countless opportunities to not only show them what it looks like to be sacrificial and to be selfless, but also to talk about it. But beyond them just seeing us being selfless and being kind and being generous to them, how often do they see us doing that for others? I mean, we're all moms here, right? We might not all be coffee drinkers, but I imagine we're going through some type of drive-through on a rare or consistent basis. How often do they see you grabbing a coffee for a friend who you know has had a tough week and dropping it off at their doorstep? Or maybe grabbing a coffee for the person behind you, or surprising them with grabbing the bill behind you. Or I know times are wacky with COVID, but how often do they see you babysitting another friend's kid so that they can go to the doctor's office or have date night with their husbands? How often do they see you doing things that they see as kind? I mean, with COVID, right? We might not be seeing as family as much. How often do they hear you saying things like, hey, let's call grandma. I know she really misses you guys. I know she misses you. Let's call her. I think that'd really make her happy. That would be such a kind thing to do. So on a weekly or even daily basis, how intentional are we to be exemplifying kindness to our kids, How about the things they hear us say? How are we modeling kindness to our kids in the things they hear us say? Ephesians 4:29 says, "Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as good for building up." So, of course, I would like to assume that our kids are hearing us say things like please and thank you, and that they see us not interrupting other people when they talk, and they see us opening the door for people. I like to assume we're all doing that well. And if we're not, I'd like to encourage you to get on that, right? Because the foundational thing of kindness seems to be good manners. But kindness is so much more than good manners, isn't it? Kindness is so much more than good manners. What type of things do they hear you saying when your husband leaves for work without taking out the trash when you just asked him to take out the trash? Or what type of things do they hear you saying about the family who just left for dinner who had really rambunctious kids? I know we don't know all these people on TV and on the news, but what type of things do they hear you saying about the people on the television? Regardless of our children's age, our words matter a lot. The words we say to them matter a lot, and the words they hear us saying to and about other people matter a lot. To be kind is to be compassionate and to have a true concern of other people. And oftentimes when people do or say things to us that we don't like, we feel justified to respond in a harsh way or to say harsh words. But how well are we modeling to our kids that despite someone else's behavior, we can respond in a kind way? Just because we respond with kindness does not mean we're condoning someone else's behavior, right? And it's not going to be easy, but it is possible to speak in a way and let no corrupting talk come out of our mouths. And the best way to teach that to our kids is to show it to them. So instead of getting upset that your husband forgot to take out the trash or maybe left you with the dirty diaper to change yet again, do they hear you saying things like, hey, Daddy works so hard at work. He's got a lot on his plate and on his mind. Why don't we take out the trash for him? Wouldn't that be so kind of us? Or when you're out to dinner and you see another family and the parents are screaming at each other in front of the kids, rather than them hearing you make some outward expression of judgment, do they hear you saying things like, hey, that family looks like they're having a tough time. Why don't we pray for them? Do you see the difference? I mean, kindness is more than just fluffy words, right? Kindness is the intentionality to turn away from the way someone made us feel and to respond with a compassionate heart and a consideration for their circumstance. So how well are we modeling this for our kids? Are we being our kids' best model in the things they hear us say, but what about the way they hear us say things, right? What about the way we say things? Proverbs 15:1 says, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. A harsh word stirs up anger. So how do they hear the way you respond to the customer service agent who's kept you on hold for 30 minutes? Or how do they hear you respond to your mother-in-law or your mom who's giving unsolicited parenting advice again? Or how do they hear you respond to your pet? This one's convicting for me. The other day, I heard my 3-year-old yell at my dog. And I said, Blake, we don't talk to our dog like that, right? Even though he's not a human, we speak with kindness always. And I was like, conviction? She totally got that from me. And I needed to apologize for setting a bad example. And I'm still working on it. So when we speak with gentleness, we're not just teaching our kids self-control, but we're also teaching them that the way we say things matter just as much as what we say. I mean, are we saying things in a way that we would want to catch our kids saying things, right? Or are we responding irrationally? Are we responding to our raging postpartum hormones? Are we responding in anger or anxiety because we're rushed to get out the door? Or maybe you're just so irritated that you respond harshly because your daughter just asked for a snack the 15th time in 30 seconds. I mean, similar to the reason we talk about people is so similar to the reason we respond the way we do, because ultimately someone else didn't make us feel good. So could we be modeling kindness better to them just simply in the way that we say things? Just simply in the way that we say things in front of our kids. I mean, this is really hard, right? I'm not claiming that it's not, right? We've got 1,000,001 things going on as moms. Sometimes we're days or weeks or months without a full night's rest, or a couple days without a shower, hopefully not more, but I'm not judging. I mean, we don't always feel like we have the time or the energy or the patience to respond, to do the kind thing, or to respond with gentleness in a kind way. And the reality is, we're not always going to be able to do this. Right? It's because of sin that we will not be able to always get this right. Because of sin, we are innately selfish. It tells us in Romans 3:23 that all fall short of the glory of God. It says all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Every single one of us, including us and our kids. So, when we inevitably fall short, because we will, and we respond with an uncool attitude or a harsh remark, are we quick to ask for forgiveness? So maybe even just in the act of forgiveness, are we modeling kindness to our kids? Maybe this morning, props to all of you for being here, right? It is a rush to get out of the house with kids. Maybe you made a snarky remark to your husband or a friend or your kid, or little Billy peed his pants right before you came here, and you responded in an unfavorable way. Did you respond to him in a way that you would want him to respond to you when things didn't go his way? And if you didn't, I encourage you to apologize, because we won't get this right all the time, will we? Ephesians 4:32 says, "Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another as God in Christ forgave you." So let's be sure that we're modeling kindness even in just our willingness to ask for forgiveness to our kids and to others. If we were to ask ourselves before we go to bed every night how well we exemplified kindness to our kids in the things that we did, in the things they heard us say, and in the way they heard us say it, and in our willingness and humility to ask for forgiveness, how well would we say we did? And let me ask you a much bigger and a much more important question. How would God, the one who hears and sees everything, how would he say you did? How would he say you did? So when I was preparing for this teaching, I found that there is absolutely no shortage of information about kindness. There's not only no shortage of information, you can buy apparel. I just saw someone yesterday that had a shirt on that said, "Kindness is electric." Like, kindness is everywhere, and everyone sees the value and importance of kindness. There's books about kindness, there's charts, there's clothing, there's challenges, there's support groups, there's so many different things about kindness. It's endless. And this kind of makes me think about potty training. I know that's a super weird transition, but I'm a mom. When you start to potty train your kids, you see that there are books about potty training. There are songs about potty training. You can buy a little training potty in every type of decor or Disney character you want. Paw Patrol, Minnie Mouse. Really, the options are endless, and it's kind of overwhelming. But when I potty trained my kids, I wiped the schedule clear, no pun intended, and I memorized Daniel the Tiger songs about potty training. I bought books about potty training. I talked about it all the time. My kids quickly learned that going pee in that potty was of high importance because we practiced it and we talked about it all the time. Similarly, my kids know that church is very important to me and my family. They know that we're going to go to church on the weekend because, well, we go to church every weekend. And they know that church is important just by not how often we go, but by how often we talk about it. Because frankly, if I were to say that church was important, but yet we never went and we never talked about it, they probably wouldn't see much of the importance of it, would they? So you get my point, right? My point is that the more we practice something, the more we talk about something, our kids are going to see that it's of high value and it's important. And so that leads me to my second point, is to make sure kindness is a priority. Make kindness a priority. The long-term benefits of making kindness a priority are going to go well beyond making things like your kids being the busiest kid, or the most athletic kid, or the smartest kid, or dare I say the happiest kid. I mean, of course we want our kids to be happy, and we want them to be successful. I'm not discounting that. But do we spend so much time making sure our kids' schedules are full to the brim that we're neglecting time to show them the importance of investing in others? Are we constantly catering to all of their wants, all of their desires, or even all of our wants and all of our desires for them, that we can completely neglect the very point of what we're talking about today? Are we as intentional about teaching kindness as we are about teaching them the ABCs, or about teaching them things that we think they should know at their particular age? Now, again, I'm not suggesting that we wipe our schedules clear of all these extracurricular things. Those are good. But what I am suggesting is that we make the theme of kindness a part of all of that, right? Kindness doesn't need to be compartmentalized. We need our kids to learn that being kind is an aspect that goes into every single thing that they do. When I drop my kid off, that was weird. When I drop my son off at school and when I pick him up, one of the first things I ask him is, hey, bud, how was your day? Did you do anything kind for anyone? Or did anyone do anything kind for you? And it's super sweet because as we continue to have this conversation throughout this wacky year, he knows he's going to be asked it. And he's much more intentional to not only do kind things, but also to recognize when people do it to him. And it's super sweet because just the other day we were chatting, and before I even got a chance, my 3-year-old daughter, who is always in the car with us, said, hey, Bryce, did you do anything kind today? Because we practice it and we talk about it all the time. Have conversations with your kids, regardless of their age, at the breakfast table about specific ways or specific tasks in which they can be kind that day. I mean, let's talk about teachers for a minute. They have been through the ringer this year, right? Whether it's preschool or whatever age they're in, they've been going through a lot. This isn't necessarily what they signed up for either. How far would it go for a little 4-year-old to go up to a teacher and say, Miss Tioe, I really appreciate you. I mean, seriously, that would just melt their heart. And so task them with that and then explain to them what they're going through, and that the very act in them being self-controlled and being patient and showing appreciation, that blesses their teacher, and that is such a great act of kindness. Practice it. Talk about it. I'm going to encourage you to practice it today. If you have kids here with you at Kids Bible Club, when you pick them up, encourage them to look at the teacher and say thank you, or to wave if they don't talk yet, right? Teach them to make eye contact, and then talk about it when you get in the car. Isn't that so nice of these teachers to volunteer their time so that mommy can have some time with her friends? Practice it. Talk about it. I mean, there are so many opportunities to leverage talking about kindness and ways to be kind with our kids. Think about TV, right? I know a lot of times we'll put on a show so that we can make dinner, or a lot of times that's our time to go get things done. But be intentional about paying attention to the character of these characters they're watching. Point out when a kid is being kind or when a kid is being unkind. If Sophia the first just got her feelings hurt, say, hey, but that wasn't really nice of them to do, right? What would have been something kind that they could have done? Or how could Sophia respond with kindness despite the fact that her feelings just got hurt? There are so many opportunities to point out kind behavior in TV, and especially unkind behavior. So leverage those opportunities because they're watching. They're totally watching. Being kind is also just to be considerate, right? To be considerate. So when your kids see you talking to another adult, teach them to be patient. Patience shows a respect for the people talking. We do something where my kids have to put their hand on my lap and I put my hand on their arm to let them know I hear them, I see that they're there, but they need to wait patiently until I'm done unless, of course, there's an emergency. This shows a respect for not only me, but a compassion and a concern and a consideration for the person I'm talking with. Teach them how to open the door. Eye contact is huge. These sound simple, but you need to be intentional to teach these kids that more is important than just their wants and their desires in those moments. Role-playing is huge. Role-playing is so big. This is a great way to practice it because you're literally practicing it. But if you're going to go to the park, which I know every mom in here does, I assume you have at one point at least, before you go to the park, Practice what it might look like for your son to go up to another kid and invite them to play with them. Show them what that looks like. Or if, you're having friends over and you know that your son or maybe their kid has a hard time sharing, role play that with them of what they can do if their kid grabs a toy from them, how they can respond with kindness and respond with gentleness and care. Again, that goes back to we can respond in a kind way regardless of what someone else is doing and be a role model for them. Kids get excited about being able to be an example to their friends. So just recently, my son and my daughter were helping cleaning up, and we have this little kitchen play set, and they were putting all the toys in a little bucket. And soon after they had just finished cleaning up, my daughter decided she wanted to play with the kitchen toy set and spilled all the toys out of the bucket. And my son got really upset because he worked so hard to clean up those toys, and he came in and he said, "Blake just poured out the toys." And so I said, "Hey, but you know how mom cleans often and it can really, it can get me upset when you guys are quick to make a mess right after? That's how mommy feels, right? So maybe you can go over to Blake and say, 'Hey, I just worked super hard to clean that up. When you're done playing, can you put those back in the bucket, please?'" So not only am I teaching him how the right way to respond is without coming and tattletelling, but now he's got empathy. Because now hopefully when I clean, he'll be a little bit more inclined to help keep it clean because he can relate to how I feel. Ladies, there are so many opportunities. These are just a few examples on the day-to-day basis of how we can be more intentional. But the really thing I'm driving it is the more we talk about it, the more we practice it, the more we make it a priority in our lives, the more we're going to be intentional to do it, and so will our kids. We need to help them recognize the importance of being kind. So like I mentioned, the resources on kindness are endless. They're so endless, which is so great because that means that we have all the help we need to equip us to teach our kids to be kind and be kind ourselves. But another thing that seems endless is celebrations, especially at this young age, right? It seems like there are so many things that we are celebrating, whether it be their birthday parties or successful potty training or a game-winning hit at baseball or first steps. There are a lot of things to be celebrated. Kids love celebrations, don't they? They feed off positive affirmation, and when they see something else being celebrated, frankly, they're usually pretty inclined to follow suit, right? So let's make celebrating kindness a thing too. So that's my third point, is celebrate kindness. So at any age, but especially when they're little, kids get so excited when we get excited, don't they? I mean, my 12-month-old, he can be in the high chair and finish his dinner, and I can say, "Hey, good job," and he literally just starts flapping his arms up. He gets so pumped that I'm pumped that he finished his peas. It's super cute. And he actually just learned how to walk last week, and it's so cute because I imagine you too, if your kids have started walking yet, you get really excited. You celebrate when they started walking. And you also celebrate the progress of them starting to learn how to walk, right? Even those first steps and then they tumble or whatever it is. I highly doubt, or I hope none of you had your kid fall the first step they took and go, "Oh, you're useless, I'm over it. I give up." Well, let's take that same approach with kindness and teaching our kids and celebrating it, right? When we see them let their brother or a friend go down the slide before them at the park, let them know they did a good job. When we see that they were patient when we were talking to another mom, say, "Hey, good job being patient." Celebrate it. They're going to see that those things are valued. We should be just as intentional to acknowledge their kind behavior as we are their unkind behavior, because that is crucial too. We do need to be intentional to point out when they are being unkind. Children are really motivated by seeing progress, and I think we as moms are too. And I think this is especially helpful because sometimes we have a tendency to grow weary, right? We work really hard at something with our kids and we don't feel like we're seeing any progress, and we start to grow weary and we start to give up a little bit. So I would encourage you to make things like charts, right? Make things like charts with your kids, similar to what you probably did with potty training. Maybe you can even highlight specific areas of kindness that they're struggling in, right? At the young age, sharing seems to be a common thing, right? So maybe it's sharing, or maybe it's patience, or maybe it's speaking gently. Make a chart and fill those in, whatever you want. You can literally Google and find a million charts, super cute Etsy ones, whatever you want. And let them see the progress they're making, and then reward them when they accomplish it 10 times in a row. Or get creative. You can go on Amazon and buy kindness coins. So you can buy kindness coins and you can maybe get a jar and fill those up, or they can redeem their kindness coins that they've earned to get a snack or whatever it might be. So I would encourage you to make those charts. They're super, super helpful for them, and they're really helpful for us too. So I would also encourage you to celebrate other people being kind. Like I mentioned, when we watch TV, often people are being kind, often being unkind too, but make sure like, hey, that was really good of that kid at the park. Show kindness to you, right? Or even how she came over and said, I like your dress. Wasn't that so kind of her? Make them notice it, right? When your kids see you highlight what someone else did, they want to do it, right? Sometimes for selfish reasons, which goes back to sin, but highlight it, right? Keep running with it. They want to do what they know is being celebrated. I mean, our kids are being raised in a world where so much is being praised, so much is being celebrated, right? I mean, having a good body is is celebrated. Athletic ability is celebrated. Fame is celebrated. Success is celebrated. Let's make a big deal and highlight things that actually matter to God, like the way we treat others. The Bible tells us in Mark 12:31 that second to loving God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength is to love our neighbor as ourself. So clearly, this is something worth making a big deal out of. So let's celebrate it. Ladies, I know that motherhood, it is such a high calling, and it is such a privilege. I mean, really, God has entrusted us with this kid. This is a big deal, but it's no small feat, and I get that, right? It's not always going to be easy. It's not. I mean, we're innately selfish people trying to teach our selfless kids in a selfie-obsessed world how to be selfless. This is going to be really hard. But as one mom brilliantly said, hard doesn't always mean bad. And oftentimes the hardest thing produces the greatest reward. So I hope you're encouraged today to make kindness a priority in your children's life, to be their absolute best model of kindness, and to celebrate it often. So I thank you for your kindness in listening to me today, and I hope that you guys have honest and fruitful discussions about areas that you can improve. So thank you.